I'm gonna be honest, guys. I don't even know where to start when I look at this bike. We recently just picked up this 1993 CR250, and it needs a lot of work. So we're gonna give you guys an overlook as to what to look for when buying a used bike. So whenever I personally go and buy bikes that have seen better days, that's the bikes I buy, let's face it. Like, nobody's selling a brand new bike for a good deal. They just don't. That everybody knows. They love their bikes. And the guy who owned this one, he loved it too, probably. But let's face it, every bike I buy needs parts. It needs brakes, tires, chain and sprockets, clutch cables, clutch lever, brake lever, grips, probably handlebars. But anyway, I go through this list and I say to myself, okay, every time I buy a bike, I at least spend $2,000 to $2,500 on parts. That's not labor, that's just parts. Tire tubes, tires, stuff like that. So if you pay $2,000 for a bike and you put $2,000 worth of parts in the bike, is the bike worth $4,000? If it's not, don't buy that bike. So on first approach, when you first see this bike, you can clearly see there's a lot going on. We've got a broken back fender. The seat is in horrible condition, not just the cover, but the seat itself, the foam, and it is saturated with water when I put my hand in there. First thing I'm gonna do is see what is going on here. Well, this bike's been out in the rain, or when the guy washed it maybe, but it is heavy. You can feel that it's soaked. You can see the plastics have definitely seen better days. When I start seeing this, when they're not touching the tanks, I start wondering, I take a quick look. Obviously we're at somebody's house, don't rush. But you want to check and see, are these stripped? Because these gas tanks are hard to replace. Okay, they're expensive. You can buy aftermarket ones. This one's obviously been painted. You can see the primer underneath and the bubbles in the paint. We want to look at the radiators, see how bad they're bent. Like, obviously we have videos showing you how to straighten radiators and we can fix it. But we want to see, is there any coolant in the bike? Let's take a look. Right? And she's pretty much bone dry because it probably leaks. This whole system probably leaks. And if you're looking at a specific dirt bike, look at what they were supposed to look like stock. Google that. You can find pictures. Because a 93 didn't have a black frame. And then if you're looking at a 93, when you get to the guy's house, don't be afraid to check the VIN. You can search all that up, and the 10th letter or digit in the VIN will tell you the actual year. Because a guy might tell you it's a 93 or a 92 or whatever. They look very similar. And it might not be. This is actually a 93 frame. Another big thing we're gonna look at, guys, is the bolts. You see this bolt? That is not a factory bolt. Neither is this. They didn't come with Allen head screws. And you look here, look at this one, right? I can pull it out. So that's telling me it's either not long enough or somebody stripped the case. And there's silicone. Somebody's put a pile of silicone on this poor bolt to get it to hold because they stripped the case. That's no good. So besides bolts, which pretty much every bolt on this bike is not the actual bolt that came with the bike, you want to start looking at right away the kickstart. So I can see on this bike, and I'll show you guys, but this kickstart is worn out. It's got play in the actual shaft. It's so worn out. But that's junk. You ride this bike, it's just gonna rattle. The kickstart's been so worn out for so long, it's actually worn a groove in the pipe. And that's no good. So now we're wondering what kind of condition the pipe's in. Now it's an aftermarket pipe, it's got a small dent. We're able to fix the dent. But that's almost impossible to fix. We'll try and buff it out. But just so you know, guys, look for stuff like that. That's a bike that's not been taken care of. This bike cycles over, right? We can move the piston. It's got pretty good compression, just like some of my other bikes with the same style motor. When we're taking a good look at these bikes, guys, we want to check before, even if the bike runs, check and see if all the spokes are there. I've bought a lot of bikes that are missing complete spokes. We're gonna check the rim. We're gonna check here. We're gonna just hold our finger and spin the rim around. This one's got a real bad flat spot right here. You can see this is hit. This rim is bent. Now, I'm gonna be able to straighten this rim, and we're gonna get these rims redone, but these rims look like hell. They are beat up. But just something to keep in mind, guys. We're lucky on this one. The spokes feel all tight and good. And because we looked previously at photos of the bike and how a 93 is supposed to be, because maybe we didn't know, we're gonna look here. And there's not supposed to be a bolt hole in this airbox. The 95 and 96s have longer covers that come down to bolt in at that point, but the 93 didn't. It had these smaller covers. These are the actual right covers for a 93, but at some point this bike had 95 or 96 covers on it, and that's why somebody has put a bolt through the airbox. So something to consider. This airbox is supposed to be white, so somebody has painted it. Somebody really liked their paint. With this poor 93, they painted the frame, the airbox, the white on the airbox, the white on the tank. Another big indicator of how hard a bike's been ridden, you start looking at the foot pegs. Now these ones are wore, you see, but like there's no spring, the pivot's gone, it's only a bolt holding it together. So what have they done? Who knows? You know, it's just, these foot pegs are horrible. I don't even know if they're the right foot pegs for the bike. The brake lever, we're gonna take a look at the brake lever. We wanna see how oval shaped the hole is. How much play is there? Well, there's a lot of play. Now there's no spring to return it. Now there's a lot of play. We start wondering if the master cylinder works. So we're gonna test the rear brake. We're gonna push it down and try and turn the wheel. It actually does hold the wheel, surprisingly, but it's just worn out in here. It's something to consider. While we're talking about the rear brake, I wanna look at the cable. We can see one of these is broken. They are just plastic. You can still get them from Honda, but you want to check and make sure that it doesn't have weird screws because maybe somebody stripped it. These covers, somebody's really been prying on it. I don't know what they thought was in there, but they've been prying on that. I want to check the rear pads. Rear pads on this bike are shot. Any dirt bike I buy, I instantly assume it needs pads. What's nice is we have a metal cover to protect the rear brake on this. Traditionally they're plastic, but as you can see, this cover's broken. Somebody broke it at some point, probably never even noticed. Now also, there's a giant bolt here. I don't know what is going on. I haven't taken anything apart. That's just supposed to be a pin to hold your pads. There shouldn't be a giant bolt head on top of this. That scares me a little bit that the rear caliper might need more than just a little work. Right away, what else we noticed when we're looking at the rear end of the bike? The nut. The axle nut's not on the right side. So somebody put this together backwards. Now, on dirt bikes where I do notice that the nut is on the wrong side, instantly what I'm looking for is the spacers. To see if they put the spacers in wrong, how long did they ride the bike with the tire offset in properly? But this one actually is pretty straight. Now the chain is beat. Obviously this plate is, like, parts are falling off it. We've seen a lot better shaped stuff than this. Next thing we're gonna check right away, even if the bike's on the ground, we're gonna grab the rear tire, and I got my leg tight against this. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Hopefully you can. There's a bad knock. Wheel bearings are shot. This bike needs wheel bearings. See, it wiggles this way, and if you grab it this way, you can feel it knock, 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 knock. The wheel bearings are done on this bike. It needs rear wheel bearings. We're gonna take a look at the chain. Obviously, this chain, it's supposed to have 3 fingers of play. Like I should be able to have 3 fingers at the rim is a pretty good rule. The play in this chain is horrible. This chain has been done for years. I can take this chain, if you were to ride this bike like this, that chain can get caught in the rear tire. See that, guys? That chain is so loose, it's gonna rip your tire apart. It's gonna hurt you. Never ride a bike with a chain that you can do this with, ever. This chain's been rode so hard that it actually wore through the guide. You see that? I hope you can. That the chain is actually outside of the guide. I could definitely probably take this chain off just by rolling it around. Yeah, there we go. That's how loose that chain is. We're gonna take a good look at the front and back sprocket. Now, every dirt bike we buy, we instantly assume it needs sprockets and chain. Just figure $200 for sprocket and chain instantly. So you can see these hooks on these sprockets. This sprocket is worn out. A rear sprocket, about the same, a little bit better, but it's still worn out. We're gonna take a look at the shifter. We're gonna feel the play here. We're also gonna feel the play in the tip. This shifter has been replaced. A bike with this kind of wear in the foot pegs does not have a shifter that is this tight. This shifter, the original shifter is probably broken. The original 3 shifters have probably broken. We're probably on number 4 or 5 because there's no way possible that a bike like this with this kind of wear and damage has a shifter that decent. So I want to show you guys how to check the linkage. So your linkage, like the bottom of your shock that hooks to your swing arm, what you want to do, lean over the bike, grab a hold of the swing arm and lift up. Hopefully you guys can see that. There's quite a bit of slop in there. So those bearings and bushings that go in there, if they're even in there on this bike, they are worn out. You know, bearings, the linkage bearings, they're $100. You know, if the linkage bearings are gone, I guarantee that the swing arm bearings are gone. So there's another $100. We're already at 500 just with chain sprockets and a couple bearings. Wheel bearings, $20, no big deal. You're gonna do front and rear on this bike, I'm sure. So we're checking bearings. Let's go to the front and take a look at these ones. Take a feel. You're gonna do that wobble. Have your buddy who came with you or hold the handlebars yourself. Get your hand up on that handlebar. Feel. These front wheel bearings actually feel pretty good. They might have been replaced. No, there's a knock there. Knock, knock, knock. Wheel bearings are cheap. 20, 30 bucks a set. You can do a wheel for 20 or $30. But it still needs to be done. And if you can't do it yourself, that's a big cost. So we're gonna take a look at the forks. Behind the covers, you can see there's fresh oil here. I can wipe it on my finger and we can see the oil on my finger there. It's just wet. These fork seals have been leaking for a while. There's all sorts of crud stuck on there, but it's gonna need a fork seals at the minimum, but I would imagine the suspension's never been touched. One thing that's notorious on these old bikes is because they've been crashed. I guarantee these bikes have been crashed a few times. Is to check these stoppers. I can feel that there's a crack there. Let me zoom in and show you guys. So I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, but there's a chunk out of this one on this side, the stopper that stops your handlebar from turning. You want to check the actual other part too, make sure it's not cracked. It's hard to see on these bikes that get painted black and they're covered in filth. So we're checking the other side and the stopper's completely missing, guys. Take a look at that, right? It's snapped clean off. So the triple clamp, the triple tree, the sole steering stem setup is basically garbage. So if you don't have one and you need to buy another one, especially we're gonna have to figure out, I don't wanna try and find another 93 triple clamp for this bike. I'm probably gonna use a more modern bike, but I need to figure out what's gonna fit and what bearings. Like this bike seems to be a lot of work. In 93, they didn't have fat bars, okay? These bars are rolled way forward, but then I know that the triple clamps weren't set up to hold fat bars. So you take a look and see what the guy has done to get them on there. If he shaved the bars down or cut the triple clamp, this is kind of important. We're gonna go ahead and pull off this Renthal pad here and see what he's done. So in this case, we're lucky. The guy hasn't decided to try and die grind the holders. He's actually went and bought the Pro Taper bar kit and bolted them in. But still, they never came with them. So just be careful, guys, when you see stuff like that. You want to feel the clutch. You want to feel the front brakes. See how they work. When you push the bike, don't be afraid to grab the front brakes and see. Ours actually, on this bike, the brakes actually are the only thing that really work really good. They do stop it. You know, the disc actually on this bike looks good. You want to feel the discs of your brakes to feel if they have any big lips or divots. Everything looks pretty good. You could micrometer them, but those ones look pretty good. So when you go to buy a used bike, most of the time the seat's gonna be on the bike. You're not gonna be pulling the seat off the bike. In this case, in the condition of the bike, I'm assuming it probably doesn't even have an air filter. When I'm looking at the quality of the bike, I just see dirt and paint flakes, it looks like, or I don't even really know. But most likely paint flakes because everything's been painted all over the motor. I look at this fuel line. Fuel line's leaking here. I see the fuel. This isn't even a real fuel line, I don't think. But it has a 90-degree bend in it, so that's not right. This fuel line needs to be more smooth into the carb. All right, guys, that's basically an overview of Project 93, Canada's worst dirt bike. And at the same time, hopefully letting you guys know what to look for in a good used dirt bike. Now, Would I recommend anybody buy this dirt bike? No, do not. If you show up and the bike looks like this, feels like this, do not take that bike home, because you missed 50% of what you were gonna buy. There's stuff I missed, but I didn't care. I didn't spend too much time looking at it. I met the guy on the side of the highway, said, okay, throw it in the truck. Here's your money, let's go. I don't even care if it ran, because I wanted to build this bike. I wanted to build a 93. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe the videos. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think this bike was worth, and what you think, you know, if I should have even bought this bike myself. This is a lot of work. But anyway, thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.